Hey Memory Keepers, how are you today? It's June 29th, 2019, and this is Christine Bryant with you, and I've got a process video to show you how I converted this gorgeous 12 by 12 memory keeping layout into a traveler's notebook layout. This was done by Kylie Klingham quite a while ago, and the words on the left and those flowers on the right really caught my eye, and so I wanted to see if I could create something similar, or take some inspiration rather from that for my traveler's notebook. I am using the Cocoa Daisy Simple Dory and Traveler's Notebook memory keeping kits. And what I want to do is give you a little bit of background about what I'm doing here. Once school was out on June 11th, I flew down to Florida and I visited my parents for a week. They are retired down there. And they have a timeshare on Captiva Island, which is on the Gulf Coast. And I went down to see them and spent some time just hanging out by the pool, going to the beach. And we went to this little restaurant called the Bubble Room. And this restaurant is apparently famous. I've talked to two separate people in two different states who know what it is and have been there. I had no idea. But we went there and we had this amazing dinner, and they have the most unbelievable desserts that you could ever imagine in your life. And one of the things that they brought out at the end of the meal, the waitress brought out this huge platter of giant slices of cake, and these cake slices are seriously huge. And I took a picture of my mom holding up one of the slices of cake to her face, and it was just such a cute photo. I wanted to document that in my book. So when I was thinking about putting the words on my page, I knew that I wanted to, rather than create a sentence like Kylie had done in her layout, I decided to just write the word cake. And since the Bubble Room is apparently known by lots of people in lots of places, I went on Google Translate and I found a whole bunch of different ways to write the word cake in different languages, and that's what I decided I would stamp on the right side of this page. So you'll see later, I'm gonna put the photo on the left with some die cuts, but on the right side here, I'm spending some time stamping the word cake. So the first thing I did was sort of use the stamp set itself as a guide for how tall the letters were going to be, and I marked off on the grid paper there, like 5 rows, I think, for each row of lettering. And just drew pencil lines so that I could make sure that I put my letters fairly straight. I love grid paper. I wish every piece of paper in the universe had a grid background on it, because without a grid I tend to go uphill or downhill, and grids just make me happy because they keep everything horizontal. So that's what the first thing that you saw me do, and now I'm going and I'm stamping, and I'm stamping each word backwards from end to beginning so that I could make sure that I could space my letters out and they would end, right at the right side of the page. I'm using a variety of different kinds of inks here. Those little square ones, like the one that you see me using right now, those are by Versacolor, and they are pigment inks. Pigment inks sit on top of your paper. They only dye the top layer of fibers, and so you generally don't have issues with them bleeding through. And I love these Versacolor little cubes because they come in a zillion colors. I have a set of, like, I don't know, 70 or 80 of them, I think. So it's pretty easy to find the colors that I want. But occasionally I can't. So I'm also using, as you see here, this little teardrop ink. That is by Versa Magic, and it is chalk ink, which also sits on top of the paper and doesn't dye through. The third type of ink I used here was dye ink, and that dark green in the middle of the page there where it says Kaku, I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that right, that's dye ink. And you got to be a little bit careful with dye ink because it will soak through the paper, and if your paper is thin, you'll see shadowing or bleeding on the backside. Luckily, the Cocoa Daisy Simple Dory, which is what I'm using here to stamp on, has very lovely thick paper, and as long as I am not really soaking, putting too much ink on my stamp, I can get away with using that and have very minimal shadowing and no bleeding on the backside. So I I'm using a variety of different types of inks so that I could get all the different colors that I wanted. And I'm just about done stamping. The letters, the alphabet set that I'm using came, I believe, in the June Lemon Grove kits, and I can't remember which one, but I'm almost positive that that came last month, and I am a sucker for an alphabet set, so I was pretty excited to really be able to use these. So I'm pretty much all done here stamping, and I'm just going to clean up my space and put everything back in the little container. I keep the month's ink choices in this little Tupperware container, and I keep it on my craft table so I can get to it easily along with the acrylic blocks. So now I'm going to take my eraser and get rid of the pencil lines that are in between. Trying to be careful not to erase directly over the inks. Their pigment ink and chalk ink takes a little bit longer to dry than dye ink, and I didn't want to smear any of it, so I was being a little bit careful. So there's the picture of my mom with that beautiful slice of French torte, and man, was it good. Chocolate cake with homemade whipped cream and strawberries in between. Holy moly, but you can see what I mean about how big the slice was. So I'm choosing right now a piece of paper to mat that on. And I decided to choose that floral paper because it had a lot of the colors, and I wanted to have a little peek of the greens and pinks and peaches and oranges and yellows all sort of peeking through. So I'm going to trim that, and then I'm going to hold off on cutting the bottom for a minute because I am now getting ready to pull out all the die cuts. Excuse me. And I'm sort of taking a couple minutes to decide what I want to put on there before I decide how much of that bottom to cut off. And so there I go. I've chosen a couple of die cuts, and I think I want a little bit on the bottom there, a little extra paper there to hold some of those things. And now I'm just going to spend a minute going through all the die cut packages. And I've got, I think, 5 different packages of die cuts. I get die cuts from pretty much all the kits, the planner kit, the planner add-on kit, the pocket memory keeping kit, the traveler's notebook memory keeping kit. I have so many packages of die cuts. It's really nice to have good assortment, and no two are the same. I've put a tab on the left side, and I wrote on it the bubble room so I could remember where we were when that photo was taken. And now I'm not going to use all of these, you'll see, but I'm pulling a variety of die cuts that have to do with food. I left the ones alone that said anything about beach or travel. I wanted anything that had to do with food, and I pulled out a bunch of different things. And once they're all pulled out, then I'm going to sort of play around with arranging them. And you see that I'm not sticking it down on my traveler's notebook just yet, because I want to play with layering and figure out which ones to use and which ones not to use. So this took a few minutes to pull different things out. And you can see them kind of playing with a couple of the tropical elements along with the word elements, trying to decide what to put. I ended up not using those arrows. You'll see me pull those out in just a second. There we go. I used that food one instead. And once I was kind of decided about what I wanted, I couldn't really figure out where I wanted the tags, and I thought, no, let me put it back where it was. That looked best. And then I'm going to put all the die cuts away that I decided not to use and just slide the whole thing over with my hand so that I can recreate it on the page. And so now it's just a matter of getting some adhesive and laying it down. I'm using score tape here, which I really like. It's very easy to use. It's double-sided adhesive that you can really easily lay down and peel. And then I'm just adding all my different bits and pieces in. I really like those tags. They're fun to use as tags, but also just as layering elements. And here I'm using some foam tape so that I can lift that banner up off the page a little bit. It's nice to have a little bit of a dimensional element. By the way, my mom is probably going to kill me when she sees that I have put that photo out for the world to see. Sorry, Mom. but it's so cute. You're adorable. Eating your cake. Adding a few die cuts here, trying to decide, should it go on the left, should it go on the right? A little bit, another dimensional element there, put the flower up top. And then the last thing I'm going to do, after I get this little arrow on, is I want to put the date down. And so I'm using this roller stamp that came in the Traveler's Notebook Memory Keeping Kit to add the date to the bottom. This was actually Father's Day dinner. So there you go. Remember, here's the 12 by 12, and this is my finished product inspired by that layout. I hope you guys have enjoyed this little process video. Please join us in the Cocoa Daisy Memory Keeping group. And if you see something you like, go visit CocoDaisy.com to purchase your own items. Thanks, guys. See you next time.